and welcome. You're joining us for a very special show on the budget. Gunning for growth with the finance minister is going to be putting out some serious formula to fix the economy. That is the question we're going to ask our special panel. We've got Ajit Gulabchand with us, Dr. Pawan Goenka and B.S. Nagesh. Also joining us from Delhi is Shivinder Mohan Singh. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the big picture. Ajit Gulabchand, do you expect this budget to be a populist one or one that will come up with serious measures?
Well, I can tell you I don't want to be the guy that does this budget because the finance minister has a whole host of problems. High rate of inflation, inflation expectations looming large, fiscal deficits, trade deficits, and a sentiment in the country that is not favor investment. So I think...
So a plate full of problems, but
yes.
Obviously his job is to always put out what is he doing about them, right? The budget in some way has to send that signal.
Yes, and I hope he does, because he seemed concerned about it. He's voiced his concern several times. But as a government, we had great expectations of this government coming forth with more reforms since it came with a more unfettered mandate. But ever since then, they have been only doing a lot more populist measures.
Dr. Goenka.
Well, I would agree with Ajit. I think if this is a populist budget, it will certainly be something that's not good for us because we have lots of problems to be taken care of. And I think budget can do things about it if we restrain from making a populist budget. The concern today is, I think, more supply side, and how does the budget kind of put emphasis on supply side and make a sustainable budget from that viewpoint. How do we bring confidence back, which in the last 4 weeks is eroded in industry? How do we bring confidence back in terms of investment in India by FDIs? All of these things have to be signaled very clearly by the budget.
B.S. Nagesh, you know, we are clear that there is a situation in India where the word populist is used every time the budget comes around because there's this anticipation, you've got to please the Aam Aadmi. But the Aam Aadmi seems to be the person right now who doesn't have the government on their side or has it on their side. Which side are you?
Well, if you look at Aam Aadmi, I think if you just expand the definition of Aam Aadmi is always thought to be the rural poor or the urban poor. To me, Aam Aadmi also is the middle class bulge of this country.
Right.
So you will have to please the middle class bulge also. Because
which possibly doesn't want any more taxation because they seem to be all right in terms of
if you look at the consumer sentiment, most of the time they get worried about what happens around rather than what happens to them. You know, and I think we need to ensure that that is boosted up. I'm extremely positive. I think we'll see a lot of surprise.
I'll be back with you in just a moment. Let's get Shivinder Mohan Singh in New Delhi to comment on this. What is your expectation? What is Delhi expecting this budget to be like, Shivinder?
Well, I think clearly from the way I see it, this is an opportunity budget. It should take advantage of the situation of where the government is vis-a-vis its tenure in the 5 years the government that it has. As also the fact that we have a couple of issues as a country today. We've got our growth back on track and we need to focus on things that we need to do to develop the country such that our growth stays in the high single or the double digit perspective. So I'm hoping it's not populist. I think the inflation issue today in hand needs to be addressed slightly more systematically, more than looking at SOPs from a populist perspective. And I think we should take advantage of a strong, stable government in its second year, which can set up a foundation and a direction of where the country needs to go to.
Okay, we will get to some of the other elements of this discussion, which is about what is it that the economy could see as come as a fix? Where do you see, Mr. Gulabchand, the finance minister, fixing the economy? I mean, we know there are deficits that are big concern even now for all of us within India, not just for the FI that looks at India from an outside perspective. There is also the challenge, where can the money come from? Where do you raise the revenue from?
Well, let us understand one thing. When we are looking at the problems that he's confronting, and when we are looking at a sentiment where foreign investment is not coming in, don't forget it is never something like foreign investment and Indian investment. Indian investment will also not be coming in, forthcoming, because the Indian entrepreneur. In the end, all entrepreneurs, all investors like to see predictability, a certain certainty. With developing or emerging markets, they're willing to accept a certain level of uncertainty, but only up to a point. And therefore, until you restore the sentiment and until you shore up the fundamentals of the economy, which were looking good and are still good, But more reforms are needed to give the assurance and the confidence that the fundamentals will continue. You must remember, if you're going to continue to grow at 8.5%, and the world's going to continue to grow at a much lower pace, your imports are going to outpace your exports.
And that will add to our bills. Hang on to this. I don't want to exhaust all your thoughts there because I want to pick up piece by piece. Tax reform you talked about. Dr. Goenka, expectation on the tax reform. Is there a realistic expectation after seeing what happened to the GST?
Well, the way I'm going to look at it is that there are two major tax reforms that are supposed to happen, GST and the direct tax code. They got delayed 1 year, fine. That's okay. We live with that. But there should not be anything that happens in this budget that goes against the tax reform that's supposed to happen next year. That signal should be that we are moving towards that and not away from it.
Shivinder Mohan Singh, if you can hear us this time, the unfinished agenda, Shivinder, what is it that the FM hasn't yet delivered that India Inc. is still searching for?
Well, I think in the case of healthcare, there are 2 or 3 things that are clearly messages that are coming out that we need to focus on as a country. I think one, we need to make sure that we have enough impetus for infrastructure development. We all understand that we are, as a country, probably a third of what we need in terms of physical infrastructure. That could be in the form of giving stops for new infrastructure, giving a particular push for PPPs with public-private coming together. The second area is on talent. We are clearly very, very short on qualified and capable people, whether it's doctors, nurses, technicians. And therefore, there needs to be a significant revamp in the way we address talent, whether it's through MCI or through a new body or through a new structure. But I think talent as a country, again, in quality and in quantity, needs to be addressed.
Okay, we'll get down into specific sectors in more detail in a few minutes from now, Shivinder. But you do highlight that there are multiple aspects, and I think those aspects can actually be held towards various other issues as well. I mean, you talked about talent for that matter. We were discussing the elements of where is the government going to raise the money from. If they want to put out some serious measures in this budget, where can they announce money shoring up from? You think it could come from divestment? Divestment has been there.
First of all, I think the overall collection of revenues in this financial year have been pretty good. And I think it's even better than the budget expectation that we had last year.
Right.
So that will continue if the economic growth continues. So that's one part. Disinvestment, obviously the new Minister of Heavy Industry has talked very aggressively about disinvestment. So that will bring in money. And then there's the 3G spectrum.
Yes.
That should also bring in some money.
Let's get corporate India's issue on some sort of comments on specific subjects. You expect corporate tax to be tinkered this time?
Well, I wouldn't like to speculate on the tax rate, whether it would happen or not. Any tax reduction is welcome and is fine. But the more important issue is that you are spending on the social sector, like NREGA, enormously.
Yeah.
And as was pointed out, that it is also something that has got too many leaks. But more important is the social sector of education and health. We are not seeing enough expenditure in this area. And this is far more important than some of the NREGA type schemes.
Dr. Goenka, your expectation, corporate tax?
Well, I do not expect any major change. I mean, some tinkering here and there in decimal points might happen, but I don't expect any major change. And not looking for a major change either, because right now that to me is not the biggest priority in what needs to be done.
Yeah.
We
There's
have far
also
bigger
talk about
priorities.
excise duty net being widened, in that sense bringing some of the SMEs into the net itself. Do you think that is a smart move at this juncture?
I think excise, we should have as few exceptions in excise duty or other indirect taxes as possible, because all exceptions leads to all kind of complications and maneuvering and manipulation that people start doing. We should try and bring everything as uniform as possible. The concern on excise will be that there's so many different, we about 4 years ago tried to bring everything into one uniform 16% excise duty, and after that every budget we have brought in exceptions to that. And now we have a whole lot of exceptions that are happening, excise, some higher, some lower.
Right.
I think we should go to a uniform duty.
You agree with that, Mr. Glavton?
Absolutely. That's where it leads to the goods and services tax.
Yeah.
So you get set-offs and it works very well.
Sure. Mr. Nagesh, from a retail standpoint, some of these issues will also remain pains in the neck.
Absolutely. I mean, unless we have a very clear signal that we are going to converge this, you'll never be able to bring it together. That's why I said you have to converge into one GST and not GST
from a
in
tax
multiple
perspective,
forms.
is this budget then really about the signal on GST? Nothing else matters?
No, from a consumption point of view and making this country a unified common marketplace, I would definitely say GST has a very, very large impact.
Okay, we're going to slip into a short break. When we come back, let's get into specific sectors. What do auto, retail, infrastructure, and of course healthcare expect truly for their own sectors this time? At least what is their wish list? Come back for that.